Welcome to Accelerated Thinking. Here with Alex Priest here today. Really excited about this conversation. So we're going to talk about personal branding, some of the myths around it, some of the stereotypes, the cringiness of LinkedIn updates. We're trying to bring it to life from both a leadership perspective, but kind of, what does personal brand mean? But before we get to some questions, would you mind just giving a brief introduction of yourself?
Well, thank you for having me. So over the last 2 decades, I've worked across content, brand and talent in two of the big advertising agencies of the world, so WPP and the BrandTech Group. Had the ability and the luxury of working on clients such as Adidas, Dyson, MasterCard, many others, and got to work with talent such as Cristiano Ronaldo, Ellie Goulding, Eva Herzegova, Willeni, in terms of how do you start shaping their brands as well. And over the last few years, I've moved more specifically into personal brand because that seemed to be kind of a topic that was coming through in terms of people are buying from people, people trust people. So how do you start building with individuals? So the last few years I've been working with elite athletes coming to the end of their careers and how they transition to the next chapter, to founders who are talking about how they get their story out to allow them to raise money, and then to creators about how do you build them into businesses and not just kind of content creators. Nice. So that gives you a bit of a quick synopsis of what I'm at.
So you've gone from Cristiano Ronaldo, Ellie Goulding to Toby Henry.
Exactly. Not much of a difference.
No,
I think the big thing is there's a lot of the work I did with them well-known names and then big brands that transfers across. It's actually the same principles, the same foundations, and it all starts with kind of that clarity of thought and thinking about who are you.
Nice. So I was just going to ask a question on that. So it's really interesting for me. You talk to some people about personal brand and they go, "Oh my God, that's like those influencers on LinkedIn finding some like esoteric way to talk about how their dog is like cultural fit in their business." And how do you think about personal brand? So when you're talking to whether it's a CEO, a founder, or an ex-sports person, like how do you debunk some of the myths and give them clarity about why personal brand is important?
So I think the first thing to think about is what is personal brand? And personal brand is a reputation. It's your reputation. It's the gut feeling somebody has when you're not in the room, what they may say about you. And I think a surprise to a lot of people is that everybody has a personal brand. It's just up to you whether you shape it or you let other people shape it. So when you talk about maybe some of the LinkedIn influencers and gurus out there talking about personal branding, a lot of that is driven by attention and virality. And I think when you talk to kind of the individuals I talk to, whether it's athletes or founders, it's actually repositioning personal branding to be a strategic piece of business and actually the opportunities that it can open up for you. So whether you're an athlete at the end of your career, you are known for one thing on the pitch, on the track or in the ring. To kind of build your relevancy and credibility going forward, what else do you want to be known for? So because with an athlete, after 2-3 years, your relevancy drops off. So what else are we going to talk to you about? I think from a founder point of view, when it comes to raising money in that early stage, a lot of founders just pop up on LinkedIn being like, "Hey, I'm raising money," and expect an investor just to give them money. But actually what the investor wants to see, and a lot of investors are investing in people and not just the idea, you have to kind of build a relationship and people have to understand you as a leader. So you start to bring out some of that storytelling. And then with kind of, I suppose, employees, there's an opportunity there to help your own personal development in terms of growing and writing, but also from a business point of view. Businesses now are starting to activate their leadership teams a lot more. In terms of it's a great way to kind of show what the company looks like, the culture, but also bring business development. So to get around that part around, I suppose, personal branding, feeling a little bit, I suppose, about ego or self-promotion, it's a big difference if you think about, "Hey, look at me," post versus, "Hey, I think this is interesting." So if you think about kind of ideas, so if you've got ideas that are worth sharing, "I went to this workshop, this is interesting. I met this person, this is interesting. I've had this thought, this is interesting." You're just sharing your point of view of value. You're not like, "Hey, here's me and my dog and he's had a haircut." So I think it's got to come down to kind of the intention behind your personal brand. How do you show up, structure it with a strategy to be like, what do you want to be known for? And that comes through your reputation, how you start to shape that.
Yeah, I think thinking about it from a reputation perspective, we talked to Nick yesterday about authenticity, and for me, personal brand and authenticity are so closely tied together. If you're putting out content or creating a reputation that is not based in your authentic self, you're going to get found out pretty quickly. It's going to look disingenuous and it's not going to meet the intent. There is no intent, right? You're just trying to get clicks, we're trying to get likes, we're trying to get that dopamine hit of someone saying, well, that was a nice post, but I think your key point there is around the intent, having a clear view of what message I want to give, what I want to be known for, and then doing it in an authentic way. I suppose when you're working, particularly with kind of that founder group or people raising, you made a really interesting point, and I have the same belief, which is in this world where we're getting told all the time that people's jobs are going to get taken with AI, we can't ignore that technology is going to be a massive factor within change, but people buy from people, people buy from people they trust. And how do you help those people navigate that initial bit? How do they use personal brand so it's genuine to then get an outcome?
So a big thing with the word trust. So what you're trying to do, Google did a study, I think maybe 2014, where they found out there was you need to spend 7 hours across 11 touch points and 4 different times to build trust so someone would buy off you.
Yeah.
So we kind of take that thinking and go, if in the online world we live in, and you know how heavy the online world is now, how do we build trust with somebody? So if you're a founder, how can you build 7 hours of trust? So we start to break it down. LinkedIn post, 60 seconds, 2 minutes, you might have built something. A podcast where you're going to talk about your story, share your point of view on something, 45 minutes, 50 minutes. A panel, 30 minutes. A VSL in terms of this is my story, this is why I started the brand, this is my goals, another 50 minutes.
Yeah.
So how can you start to build that 7 hours of content that builds, just think of it like a trust bank. You're putting more in to this trust bank each time. Okay, here's something else I'm throwing there. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to build this trust with people. So actually, whatever we're selling, whether it's a service or product, they're pre-sold before they get there. The whole thing is about becoming magnetic. And actually, how do someone arrive at your door, whether that door is physical or online, and they know everything about you? Not everything, but they've got a good enough sense of what you do, how you help them, whether you offer them or not, and your service. So that's a big thing. That can we build your trust bank, and then can we start to build narratives around that trust? So actually, okay, this person's got this point of view, and it needs to be a spiky point of view. It can't just be like, yeah, LinkedIn's good. It needs to be, why do you thoroughly believe that LinkedIn is great for you? And it's got to be, you're not trying to be for everybody, you're trying to break it down, and you're trying to attract a tribe, and that's where the personal thing comes in, right? So if we just go on job titles, or we go on kind of the product we sell, it can become quite samey. The difference is people are attracted to you, the relationship you can create, the things that, you enjoy this hobby, you've got this family situation, this is where you were born, this is where you were raised. People are looking for connections to build relationships. If you can build connections that people, kind of like you, you'll then build that trust.
Yeah, that's really important. I think we do a lot of work with service-based businesses, and I always say to people who are in their senior role that trust-based selling is a real skill, and it comes with time and relationship. You can't just walk into a room, ask people for money in exchange for a service if they don't know you, because they don't trust you. So how do you build that up credibly? So if you take it down a level to an organisation, if you're speaking to a more junior group of people who have aspirations to move into more senior roles where selling it becomes part of the job, and we're all selling in some regard all the time, how do you get them to think about personal branding from that point of view?
Yeah, I think it's a big mindset shift. I think people have got a thought in their mind about what personal branding represents, and it's normally quite a negative one, where it's a not for me or I'm too busy. I think if we can shift it, personal brand really is personal development, it's evolution. A lot of the work with personal brand is actually looking inner and getting inner clarity to understand yourself. If you can start to understand yourself and what you want to be known for and give clarity, you can then build confidence. So talking to kind of that junior team who are looking to sell in time, you've got to be able to build relationships with people. You've got to have conversations. So to do that, you've got to open yourself up beyond just a job title. So you can't just be the manager, the senior manager, whatever the position may be. You've got to build a relationship with that person. So how do you build relationships? And it goes back to having conversations. And then conversations can happen in work or around work, whether it's kind of lunch and learns, whether it's kind of a meet and greet, whether it's kind of an intentional coffee. How do you actually start to build relationships that open up that? A fundamental piece for me around the selling is that you're not going to sell whatever your products or services unless you're good. So being good at your job, having a good product, a good service, It's kind of a non-negotiable.
It's table stakes, yeah.
Exactly. You have to be. That gets you in the game.
Yeah.
And to have a chance of winning the game, whatever winning looks like to you, you have to have this point of view, this connection with people.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting because, you know, when you say selling, some people might say, well, I don't sell anything, but I think the reality is we are always selling either ourselves, the next project we want to be doing internally, selling our capability, and I think people sometimes lose that because they're like, you know, I don't talk to clients, I don't sell, but I think any interaction you are having at some level is about storytelling about yourself in a genuine way to sell, whatever sell means. And I think personal branding, I like the way you reframe that in terms of personal development, because it really is, and just having a framework by which you can think about it, whether or not you go heavy into some of the outbound YouTube channel, LinkedIn, podcast, that's really a personal choice, and depending on what you get out of it.
I think a lot of people go personal brand equals LinkedIn, especially in a business sense, and there's a whole bunch of work that needs to be done before that. You need to build the clarity and understand your positioning and who are you here to help, how can you help them, and how are you going to serve them, what's your point of view. Once you get that foundation, and once you've got, you know, your identity worked out, and once you've got your story worked out, you can start to then package that into a positioning that you can then put out to the marketplace. Whether that marketplace is internal, whether it's clients, whether it's a broader marketplace. The distribution channels, such as your LinkedIn, your newsletters, your YouTube, your podcast, that's just a way for making your message visible externally. There is obviously internal ways to make it visible, but also external ways. And I think it's a personal brand is such a growth hack for any individual. It kind of sits very nice, as we talked about in personal development, but kind of journaling, mindset, this evolution about if you're not growing, you're going backwards. So, and it's about putting yourself out there, which is a very scary thing to do. And putting yourself out there, it doesn't have to be an interview, it doesn't have to be on LinkedIn, it could just be raising your hand in a client meeting and saying something. And I think you've got to build that confidence of clarity to have that point of view and then put it out there.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I think just before we close, because I could probably talk for hours around this, it's a super interesting topic, and maybe we'll do a longer form version of this. But I suppose if you were going to say to someone, how do I get started with personal brand, what were the 3 things you would say to them?
How to get started? I think it really would come down to, like, what is your goal, what are you trying to achieve with this? So some people are trying to get a promotion, some people are trying to hire people, some people are trying to monetize their expertise. I think once you have a goal and a direction in mind, you then want to start by asking yourself a very simple question like, who are you trying to help? And how can you help them? I think if you start there, you then start to understand your audience. So I'm trying to help this type of client or this type of person, and this is how I help them. You can start there. That's a really, really good starting point. Then I would then think about how you can start using that positioning, that message, to start showing up in different places and just putting it out there, starting with very small, simple signals. So brand is all around sending signals to people. Some are big signals, some are small signals. But small signals could be anything from, I'm going to just talk to this person, I'm going to go for a coffee with this person. So to get started, I would kind of just recap, and it comes down to your goal, who you want to help, and how you're going to help them. That's kind of, once you get that, then you can start talking from there. Without that foundation.
Great, awesome. Hopefully that was helpful. Thanks for watching. This has been Accelerated Thinking. Big thanks to Alex for coming on, and see you next time.
Thank you.